Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan live post Trump circus. Delighted to be joined by Steve Grumbine, co-founder of Real Progressives and dear friend and family member of Status Coup. A lot going on. Obviously, whatever political stripe you are, historic day in the United Corporations of America, where a former president was under arrest for a short time and arraigned. So we'll get into that. Also, news on East Palestine. As far as I know, Steve, we're the only outlet covering the petrochemical mushroom cloud bomb that detonated over the heartland, while the rest of the media has moved on. Few smaller independent outlets are staying on it, but for the most part, it's us and a couple others. So we'll stay on that. And I think we should talk about the ramifications for society now that the media has morphed back into 2016 mode, because I think we are entering a Trump zone
24 by
24/7.
7. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So we'll get into all that. Please smash the like button. Please share this live stream. If I'm sweating, it's because I was just walking my dog, and up in the New York area, it is fucking hot. It is really hot and humid on April 4th. So wonder why. Thank you to John Farina, who was live for 3 hours for us earlier, covering both, Trump supporters rallying as well as some Trump protesters. So we'll have a few of those clips for you. Let's get into Steve. We're not legal scholars here. We're not legal analysts. We'll get into a little bit about the indictment. I personally don't care all that much about the details, because as far as all the cases against Trump, I think objectively this is probably the weakest one. Colin, if you have the first tweet there from Ryan Goodman, who's formerly with the Department of Defense. You got that, Colin? Yeah, there we go. So the participants also took steps that mischaracterized for tax purposes the true nature of the payments made in furtherance of their scheme. They're talking about Trump, Michael Cohen, and Alan Weisselberg, who was Trump's finance guy. The second part of that tweet, under that, David Pecker, who was with AMI and the tabloid, who part of the catch and kill, where Trump allegedly or bought or basically you buy a story, you pay off the source so you could then kill it so it doesn't get out. So apparently David Pecker is expected to be the star witness. August 2015, the key meeting that set up the catch and kill election scheme. Pecker, Trump, and Cohen. Pecker, Trump, Cohen had a series of discussions about suppressing the Karen McDougal story. She was a Playboy model, I guess, that Trump had relations with or an affair with, to try and stop that from getting out. After the election, Trump meets with Pecker. That's Pecker's with the National Enquirer. Is the tabloid, to thank him, I guess, for keeping the Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal story out. Excuse me, the Karen McDougal story. Summer 2017, Trump invites Pecker to dinner to thank him for his help, and so on and so on. Let's go down to
Dude, it's kind of hard to keep from just busting out laughing with these names. You got Stormy Daniel, the porn star, mixed with Pecker. I mean, after a while, this stuff just writes itself, doesn't it? I mean,
indeed. So let's go to the second Ryan Goodman tweet there. Prosecution of falsifying business records in the first degree is commonplace and has been used by the New York District Attorney offices to hold account criminal behavior. The second tweet under that, which I think is key, because there's been a lot of criticism that they're trying to make a basic misdemeanor of falsifying business records into a felony. But since District Attorney Bragg took office in 2022, prosecutors have filed 117 felony counts of the charge against 29 individuals and companies, according to data. So basically, in a nutshell, my understanding of this is They're charging Trump for putting down payments to Stormy Daniels, a hush money payment, which is not illegal to pay off a woman from going forward if you had an affair. But he put it down for tax purposes as legal services, which is falsifying business records. And they are taking that and making it a felony. They're bumping it up to a felony because they're saying that the falsification was meant to conceal another crime. I haven't read the whole indictment. I don't plan on reading the whole indictment. I believe the other crime they're talking about is federal election law, but that's where it gets blurry because this is a state district attorney prosecuting him. So I assume that the felony, they would be talking about state election law in New York because federal election law supersedes state election law. And the federal prosecutors declined to go after Trump for this. So at the end of the day, if you're a Trump supporter or not, I don't really think the details matter because if you're a Trump supporter, you think it's bullshit. And if you're not a Trump supporter and you hate Trump, you're going to say, well, if anybody was going to be charged for this, then he should be charged for this. So I think it's really tribalism. I think of all, what was the other crime? I don't know. It's not in the indictment. It's not in the written indictment. I was watching the legal analysts kind of pontificating about it. I believe the other crime that they're saying he was trying to cover up was election, falsifying election forms or campaign finance fraud, which, by the way, most of our politicians are guilty of, but they never charge anyone really with campaign finance unless it's a major infraction. But in the end of the day, I think this is pretty much a weak case. I don't think it matters as much in the grand scheme of things because I think it will be dragged out for a year or two. There was other things in the indictment, potentially Trump paying off a doorman $30,000 who apparently was going to go public about allegedly an illegitimate child that Trump had, which ended up being false. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Trump clearly paid to quiet this adult film star because he didn't want it out before the election. Frankly, I think it was a waste of money for Trump. I think if it came out before the election, he still would have won, to be honest with you.
They'd have probably celebrated him.
Right. I mean, let's remember this payoff happened a few days after the Access Hollywood tape came out where he said, I like grabbing women by the pee. And he won because contrary to MSNBC and the rest of them, it wasn't Russia. It wasn't Comey. It was NAFTA. It was 40 years of neoliberalism that convinced people in the Midwest that billionaire tax cheat, who also, by the way, if you want to get Trump on real financial crimes, go talk to people who know Trump from New York. He was money laundering in the 80s, 90s, and most of the 2000s with the Russians. That was the real like Russian collusion, money laundering. I said that when I was at the Young Turks. I mean, it's known that Trump was involved with the mafia. There was money laundering going on. This stuff to me is child's play. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. I think bigger picture, I'm less focused on the indictment per se and whether he's guilty of this. He's certainly guilty of having an affair. He's certainly guilty of trying to hush up Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, so it didn't get out before the election. Maybe without the Access Hollywood tapes, Trump wouldn't have cared as much, but maybe because this came out where he said, I like grabbing women by the pee, and in an unprecedented step, Trump came out and apologized on camera for that. He said, it was locker room talk, but I apologize. But maybe he thought if this got out too, that would be too much. And maybe he's right. I mean, Trump only won by 77,000 votes between Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania over Hillary Clinton. It should have never been that close, but I digress. But on the grand scheme, what I'm more focused on is I think we're having a repeat of 2016 where cable news, so CNN, MSNBC, Fox News to a lesser degree, realize, wow, our business model is dying. Our average audience is, with all due respect, Fox close to 70 is their average audience. CNN, MSNBC a little younger, but still older people. We have older people in the audience, so I'm not discriminating. But from an advertising perspective, from a long-term business model perspective, that's not the median audience you want. Advertisers, their sweet spot is like 25 to 54. So the cable news model was dying as the internet and cord cutting and all this thing. And all of a sudden, this just magic wand of an everyday tabloid fell into their laps. And they were covering his empty podiums and his plane landing at rallies. Remember, Bernie had 40,000 people at a rally. They're covering Trump's empty podiums. And they were doing it today. They're covering his plane landing. They're covering the entourage from Trump. He's walking out of Trump Tower right now. He's driving over to the courthouse. Maybe today, Steve, you could say, oh, well, it is unprecedented, Jordan. I don't think it's going to stop. I think they're going to be covering Trump, particularly MSNBC, CNN, the Times, the Washington Post. Remember, the New York Times, Washington Post, their digital subscriptions doubled under the Trump campaign and then the Trump presidency from hate subscriptions. So I think we're back to the future in a way, which is back to 24/7 Trump, which is bad for the people in East Palestine, bad for the people in Flint, bad for the people living paycheck to paycheck, bad for the people who are being busted by Jeff Bezos, Howard Schultz, and are trying to unionize, but being the victims of union busting, and bad for people who are still on the really hard edge of inflation.
Yeah. I mean, 34 counts that they put for this particular arrest. And from what I'm understanding, this is just the tip of the iceberg from other states that are going to be bringing charges towards him. From what I'm understanding, Georgia will be falling in line here shortly too, with their own set of charges for different things.
From what you understand, do you have inside sources that the order, Steve?
I don't know exactly that. All I know is that a gentleman who advises a lot of the people within the Democratic Party had said basically don't think it stops here. Once they start unrolling these indictments, it's going to just be kind of like a rolling wave. This is the Steve talking about the subject like it's a real subject for a moment. Okay, I'll get to my normal self in a second, but for right now, the fact is there's like 34 charges. And I was on with John Kiriakou the other day on Sputnik Radio and Political Misfits, and we were talking about this. And the truth of the matter is that this is stuff that Donald Trump loves. He relishes. He lives for. There's no such thing as bad publicity, and they're going to give it to him in spades. I think that Donald Trump, for all the trash that he did and for all the trash that he may be, is an absolute master of this particular medium, this space right here. And as a result of that, he allows the liberals, the shit libs, the conservative Dems, the rank and file establishment lovers that watch MSNBC and still watch TYT, things like that. Those guys are literally, they're salivating over this too. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's going to be once again, Donald Trump. Now, the difference this time is there isn't the most qualified woman to ever run for office up against him. There's nobody from the Democratic side that is remotely decent. We've had, a great sample size of what Jolton Joe Biden does. And I think that he has left almost every single person wanting someone else. So this right here is like better than campaign. I mean, it's free too. He doesn't have to pay anything other than legal costs. He's getting all this free publicity, and he's going to look like a king as he beats, or even if he gets convicted for this stuff, he'll turn it around that it was just a political witch hunt, and it'll be over. His base will remember how much they love him, and it will be like pouring steroids on Trumpism one more time. But you can't make people see that, and I don't know why that is.
Well, we don't have to imagine it. Let's take a trip down memory lane to about 5 hours ago and play a little montage of Trump supporters. Looked like there was a decent crowd in New York City. John Farina, who does great work for us, he was out there. You had police did separate, the anti-Trump protesters with the Trump supporters. There was definitely some colorful moments. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
We actually gained 400 subscribers. So welcome if you're a new subscriber. You might be a Trump supporter. It's you're not going to have to wait long to learn we're not. But we're also not fans of Biden. We're also not fans of any of them because all of them are corrupt. I think Trump is a big phony baloney. I think most of you who support him got hoodwinked. But I'm not going to knock you if you do support him. But if you're new to this channel, we're going to call them all out and point out corruption across the board because they all are selling you down the river and they all are basically taking legal bribes from the donors, including Trump. But let's just show, and thank you so much for the super chats, particularly humorous. We'll read them at the end. Let's show some of the coverage earlier where John Farina interviewed Trump supporters.
That's the vision. Go ahead, Judge. I'm here to witness the fourth insurrection of Donald Trump live in person. I didn't witness the other three, but I'm going to witness this one today. How do I think about Alvin Bragg? I think he's a scumbag. He's letting our city burn. People steal, shoplift, murder, loot. It doesn't matter. Crime is good for business in New York City. So they're going to spend all their resources, half the DA's resources, indicting a man for hush money, which is not a crime.
What do you mean by debt? What do you mean by that?
What did Patrick Henry mean when he said?
I don't know. I don't know that guy. What does it mean?
It means a lot of things.
What does it mean to you?
How much money do you have in the bank?
How much money you got? How's it going? My name is William. What's it mean? What's it mean? Debt.
Trump took those regulations off the backs of those corporations. Sounds like a good idea to me. Trump tried to build a wall. That wall would be protecting us all. Sounds like a good idea to me. He got the economy moving again with lower taxes for you, my friend. Sounds like a good idea to me. Hell, I've been impeached before. I still got 2024. Sounds like a good idea to me. LGBT's okay. 3 bathrooms is a little gay.
What Trump did wasn't criminal. Do you think it's okay to have an affair and with Stormy Daniels and keep it quiet?
Well, you know what?
Money, keep it quiet?
That's talk. See how money keep things quiet? How do we know? Did they take pictures of them? Did they have pictures and photograph them in bed or anything like that?
I mean, she admitted to it.
Talking and not seeing and knowing is two different things. That's just like you know I was with her, but you don't know what happened. She just said that. How many people right now say, "Oh, he raped me," and they didn't rape her? They didn't rape the person. Same thing, same category.
Now, what about the classified documents?
The documents and all that stuff. Every president has classified documents, except they coming after him because they don't like him. He has a voice. He has a power. He has a lot of things going on. They want a quiet president like Biden. Oh, yeah. We don't need nobody like that. I ain't got nothing against Biden because I like all presidents. But he's not. He don't have what it takes.
Well, do you think that this will finally set the standard?
I think so.
Like,
Yeah. This is going to show a whole phase of everything. I don't know what, but let's see what the outcome comes. You know?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So that was just some of the moments out there earlier. Colin, do you have the clip with the troll? He's a popular comedian. I should know his name, but he was out there trolling, and he was pretty damn good. It's the Logic Max.
It's a crime to take government property. Yeah, it's a crime to take government property.
Yeah,
okay?
sure. Is it a crime to falsify records? For a president to take classified documents home? Everyone's done it. Trump was just the first not to give them back.
Damn, bro, you tripping as fuck.
Why are you down here this morning? What made you come down to support the president?
Well, you know, there's a witch hunt here. And every time that there's been a witch hunt in American history, good, proud Christians have been there with matches and sticks.
I don't know, Sarah Good didn't deserve it. She was a Christian.
Yeah, you know, like what they're doing this Trump is unconscionable. You know, it's not a crime to pay, you know, for sex. And it's not, well, in this state, yes. In this state, sure, but in Nevada,
You don't know what you're
where
saying,
I
sir.
visited twice, it's not a crime.
Well, this is New York. Do you live here?
What's your
name and
Well-
where are you from, sir?
Yeah, my name is Maximilian Clark. I'm from here in New York City. And I am here to say that, like, okay, the DA, he's fishing because everyone's afraid of Trump. They're afraid that he's going to institute fascism because all of his followers are white supremacists, because he's going out there on the daily being like, you need to stand up for America. And people are interpreting that as a call to violence, especially the people who are being violent as a response to the things he's saying. Right? Right? So when, Trump comes along and he's just like, hey, stand by. Rise up, and all of a sudden a couple thousand of us go to the Capitol building on a tour. It's not illegal to visit the Capitol building. I'll have you know, lots of people have done it. But sure, you bring bear spray, and all of a sudden it's a crime.
Yeah,
you kill one cop with a flagpole, and all of a sudden it's a crime. That cop was working for the Democrats.
Oh, so you're a troll and a dumbass too. Okay, cool.
Sir, is there
I
any
can't tell if
president's accused of that would
She said he's from New York, but I don't think so.
If the president was somehow accused of, like, I don't know, bringing socialism to America, but that's the opposite of what he stands for. Trump is.
Oh, the best part about that, admittedly, I didn't know who he was at first either, but the reporters were all like, had their microphones out, like thinking that this is legit, until they realized, like, oh, this guy's clearly a comedian trolling them. But anyway, I also saw somebody say, Michelle, Stormy said herself, no affair, so stop lying about it. Well, Stormy has referred to Mr. Trump's size. So I don't know how she would know about his lower extremities if they didn't have any relations. Trump was married to Melania, poor Melania, in 2005, and the affair was in 2006. I don't think Trump was paying $130,000 to Stormy Daniels for her to buy new clothes. Anyway, Steve, before we move on, at the end of the day, I think that there's multiple conversations here. There is room to do a little whataboutism, because as much as I think Trump should be convicted for other crimes, to me, I won't lose any sleep if he's convicted for this, but I think this is a weak case. I actually think of all the potential charges that he could be charged for, it's the classified documents that he not only will be charged for, I think he actually could get convicted. And you and I have spoken about that. In America, there's one constant. If you get on the wrong side of the CIA, the FBI, and the deep state, there is a deep state, good luck. Ask JFK, Julian Assange, and the rest of them. And Trump has certainly gotten on the bad side of the military-industrial complex, because reportedly, and through the leaks from the Department of Justice, he had classified documents at Mar-a-Lago about nuclear programs, about human sources, which is spies. They don't take that lightly, because that is the most sacred thing to the deep state and the military-industrial complex. And also, more reporting came out over the weekend that was kind of buried because of this indictment, that there is evidence, apparently, in the classified documents case, that Trump himself was personally going through boxes of classified documents and kind of picking out what he wanted to keep before giving back some. So I don't really know what the defense could be for any of this. It seems like they have him dead to rights. I'm sorry to say, I think Joe Biden could be prosecuted for other things, but the Biden having like 20 classified documents at his house is not even comparable to this. Because Biden and his lawyers, they cooperated with the DOJ. You have Trump for a year refusing to give them back, and then after being subpoenaed, refusing to give them back. You have witnesses that gave him up to the DOJ. You also, according to new reporting, have security footage of Trump going through the boxes. So I think he's in trouble when it comes to that classified documents. So much so, Colin, if you have the Sean Hannity clip. Sean Hannity, this is priceless. Sean Hannity was doing a softball interview with Trump, I think this was the other night, and tried to kind of help him out on the classified documents issue, saying, I've known you for a long time. I know you wouldn't go through these boxes when you're asked to return them. Let's play that if you have it, Colin. Did he just say something?
I didn't hear it.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure if I have that. Give me one second.
Okay. It's on the list. That was amazing. Morning Joe crew.
Let's play this clip again in case you all will, first of all, miss Donald Trump's confession, and two, miss Sean Hannity trying to move him along, and he just wouldn't do it because he was like going, no, I like my hand on the hot stove so much, I'm going to put the other hand on the hot stove. Run it, TJ.
I can't imagine you ever saying, bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them. Did you ever do that?
I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
But I know you. I don't think you would do it.
Well, I don't have a lot of time, but I would have the right to do that. I would do that. There'd be
All right, let me move on.
Remember this.
Yeah.
This is the Presidential Records Act. I have the right to take stuff. Do you know that they ended up paying Richard Nixon, I think, $18 million for what he had? They did the Presidential Records Act. I have the right to take stuff. I have the right to look at stuff.
I have the right to take stuff.
So, sorry if you're a Trump supporter watching. I know you don't want to believe any of this, but he's confessing to a crime on Fox News. And Sean Hannity is very quickly, because Hannity's not an idiot, contrary to the marketing, move on. But Commie John says, who gives a crap? I'll answer, Commie John. I don't necessarily give a crap per se about Donald Trump. You know, in the big picture of things, you put a gun to my head, I think George W. Bush is the first, number one politician that should be imprisoned. There's a lot of them, but if we're doing like a rankings, I think Bush, Cheney, all of them who led us into a war on false pretenses, 1 million Iraqis wounded and dead, American soldiers wounded and dead, families forever torn apart. I mean, literally the war on terror. I mean, that was basically created by us for the most part. So I think there's a lot of politicians you could argue should be in jail alongside Trump. But at the end of the day, we need to start getting back to actually some semblance of a rule of law where powerful people are held accountable. And I don't know so much about this indictment because I think it's a stretch that falsifying business records and paying off a porn star is necessarily 34 felonies. I think it could get tossed, or he might be found not guilty on a technicality. But on the bigger picture, they have Trump on tape in Georgia, get me 11,000 something votes. That's clearly trying to violate election law. January 6th, unless they have a smoking gun, obviously he did incite some violence. It's a harder thing. You have to prove intent as well. Classified documents, I mean, if I took one classified document, they'd throw me in solitary confinement if I worked for the government. If it was anybody but Trump, he would have been arrested by now for that. So I think it's a good thing if he's going to be charged and convicted for these more serious crimes. However, let's not ignore Joe Biden's family has used this country and used Biden's position to make millions of dollars in Ukraine, China, other countries. Obama, I think, did some questionable things when he was president that could have been looked into. You also have Bush outside of the Iraq war, torture, and violating the Geneva Convention through his torture programs. There's a lot of other things you could look at presidents for. So I don't think we could have selective glee today about Trump. Yes, hold him accountable, but we haven't held any of the bankers accountable, Steve, who crashed our system. We've never held the fossil fuel executives accountable. Hell, Norfolk Southern just poisoned a whole village. They're not going to be held accountable, maybe civilly, but not criminally. So I could understand why, if you're a diehard Trump fanatic, you're blind anyway. Trump could do no wrong, but you're going to say, well, what about all these other people?
Yeah, it's a big club, and you and I ain't in it, Jordan. That's for sure. And, I'm going to go back to 2015, 2016, 2017 timeframe when energy for a Green New Deal was there, when energy for Medicare for All was there, when energy for a whole platter of Bernie Sanders style programs were there. People were still fighting sort of for Bernie, at least fighting for ourselves, hoping that we got better with student debt cancellation, things like that. And at that point in time, I said, this nonstop, ridiculous head jerk towards Trump is going to ruin the one opportunity we have to fundamentally change things through the system. I have such a low regard for the system to begin with, such a low expectation of anything coming from it, that when I see the establishment working overtime to try and shift my attention away from a Green New Deal and away from Medicare for all and things like that and put it onto this, I know that there's something else going on. And for me, I have been really upset about the Trump 24/7 news cycle since it began. And I believe it might be the single greatest thing that cost us, not just forget Bernie, because we've seen Bernie do different things here since he kind of gave up the ride. But in that moment, we have lost so much from each other. You don't even hear people talking about these things because they no longer believe the government will provide it. Nancy Pelosi's green dream, Joe Biden absolutely will not support Medicare for all, this hogwash with the student debt. So I think people have become so rightfully cynical, so rightfully disconnected from the political landscape to saying we got to do something different. And when they trot Trump back out again, here we go again, kind of like Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder. Here we go again. You know, it's like ridiculous over and over, these distractions. There's no way that this is not intentional. And, you know, you look at what's happening with China and you look at what's happening with Russia and the BRICS coming together and places like Honduras, recognizing Taiwan, watching the world split in two. I mean, and this right here will suddenly adjust the gaze to Donald Trump again. And he's just not that important to me. If we could get him on something substantive, great. But I have a long laundry list similar to what you were saying, except I would add Bubba Bill Clinton and his gang into that mix for sure. But we genuinely have literally lost the plot on fighting for ourselves. We're so willing to just ignore making each other whole that these kind of things, it's like you hate it, but it's the train wreck you can't take your eyes off of. So it's terrible. To me, it's terrible. I fully expect Donald Trump to walk away. I fully expect him to crush DeSantis because of it, and I fully expect him to win the presidency.
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, whether you are a progressive tree hugger, whether you are a conservative, gun-toting, God-loving, you know, abortion is murder, you know, we got different people watching. This is the indictment I care about. This is the indictment that I care about. Because all of our elected, bribed politicians, this is the biggest crime, much worse than Trump or Biden or any of these people. We and all of this Trump circus and all of corporate media are designed to distract you from this. We have had a 40-year grand larceny in this country, stealing from me and Steve and everybody watching. We don't have any wealthy billionaires watching, I don't think. This is what the media doesn't want to cover. This is what the media does not include when they give you that great jobs report. This is what the media and the Democrats, if they're in power, the Republicans they're in power. If unemployment is low and GDP is great, what kind of amazing, wonderful, terrific country is a 40-year Gilded Age? I mean, I could keep going. Income gains at the top dwarf those of the low and middle income households. You see that? 1980 to 2015, top 1%, 226% change in income for the better. The bottom 20%, not so good. This just happened to go with union member declines. A lot of conservatives are union members. A lot of liberals are union members. Do you see what's going on in America, where we have, for the first time in maybe 20 years, a little momentum in terms of workers trying to unionize? You got companies like Starbucks trying to crush it like a bug, retaliating. You have Amazon trying to crush it like a bug. You have these hearings, which are a joke, other than Bernie Sanders and a couple others. Everyone else that that Howard Schultz, the Starbucks CEO, testified in front of, they were very diplomatic and, you know, oh, your rags to riches story. We have a president who's a fake union guy, but actually has done everything to crush unions in his whole career. Literally, we're about to cover East Palestine. Remember, Biden literally blocked railroad workers from going on strike at the end of last year. That's not a progressive issue. It's not a conservative issue. Railroad workers, I think honestly, if I had to take a survey, most of them are probably more right wing, and they're working on, in some instances, 20 to 30 hours straight. So none of these issues the media cares about or exist to cover. They exist to cover it up. And I think we could walk and chew gum at the same time. Sure, there could be some coverage. Trump is the former president. If he wrongly took hundreds of classified documents, if there's evidence that the Department of Justice or FBI find that he tried to do things with the classified documents that he shouldn't have been doing, fucking charge him, try him, and throw away the key if you have evidence. Same thing with Georgia. I think Hunter Biden at this point should be indicted, because I'm pretty sure if I did some of the things Hunter Biden did, just start with the tax evasion and tax fraud, I'd be indicted. I think Hillary Clinton should have been indicted. If I worked in the government and I had a private server that I was sending, even by accident, if I was sending classified documents through private server, do you think that they would not prosecute you or me, Steve? I mean,
just think about all the ridiculous people that defended Hillary Clinton during that time period. I mean, seriously, this is what creates this idiocy. This is what creates the idiocracy, is that people have like this built-in forgetter that every fool under the sun was sitting there running interference for Hillary, just as if they were Trumpers. And it's the same exact shit. And I think people are pulling away and pulling together and just disgusted with it all. I mean, everyone from the folks down there, the Whitakers in West Virginia, if you watch those documentaries, all the way through to these people that were showing up at this protest today. People are sick of it, right, wrong, or indifferent. They're sick of the whole shooting match. I don't see how in the world we're ever going to get anywhere, Jordan, ever, right. Period. I don't see how they're going to prosecute them either, by the way. I would be absolutely blown away if any of it sticks.
I think the classified documents, I mean, we could talk about it more.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think he could go for that, because, again, you piss off the CIA. You have documents lying around the pool, per se, about identifying spies. And it just so happens in 2021, there was an influx in U.S. spies dying overseas. I don't know. By the way, Razik, I love your cat, but let's take a step back here. Status Coup is anti-Trump. Called Trump supporters cult-like. That isn't news. It's spreading propaganda. Well, Razik, I'm a battle-tested veteran of the Trump years. I covered Trump on the road in 2016. I covered Trump on the road in 2020. I think I've covered at least 50 or so Trump rallies / flag drops, etc. I have said that there are a lot of Trump supporters I've interviewed that are great people. I don't agree with them politically, but I didn't say they were in a cult per se. I said I think they've been misinformed. I think they've been kind of hypnotized by the charisma and magic and the WWF aspect that is Trump. There are some aspects of Trump followers that I have seen cult tendencies, but do I think all Trump supporters are part of a cult? No, I do not. However, I do think there are some Trump supporters that it is a bit of a cult. They think he could do no wrong. I think if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, they would find a reason to excuse it. With that said, if we're being fair, there's a lot of MSNBC viewers that are part of a cult. There's a lot of Hillary stans that are living in La La Land and part of a cult. I'll give you a perfect example, Steve, as we move into the East Palestine discussion. You have people, when I tweet Joe Biden, it's 50, today is 60 days since the East Palestine derailment. He has not visited East Palestine. You have, Biden bootlickers and DNC cult members saying nobody died in East Palestine. They did die in Mississippi where he went. And, the symptoms you're talking about, that's not real. I literally had people saying this to something I tweeted. That's a cult also. So I said back, wait a minute. The standard for a presidential visit is death count. That's the only way he could visit a location. And wait a minute. You're saying residents who are talking about having nosebleeds, diarrhea, nausea, chemical burns, dizziness, among other symptoms, it's just in their head. They're making this up. So we have tribalism across the board, whether it's liberalism, whether it's conservatism, neoliberalism, libertarianism. We have people that it doesn't even matter what the facts are. They've gravitated to their corners, their heroes, whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump, whether it's hell, it could be Ron DeSantis. There's some hero worship of him in Florida. Hillary, any criticism of Hillary, her cult followers would say sexism. Kamala, when I covered her in 2020, you cover her critically. Her moonwalking away from Medicare for all after 24 hours after announcing she was running for president. You're a racist, So we're not anti-Trump. I think Trump is a populist phony, is a phony populist. I think Trump sold you a bunch of bullshit and then gave the biggest tax break in American history with 85% of it skewed towards wealthy people. I think Trump sold you on, I'm going to get rid of NAFTA and we're bringing all the jobs back. And then he kind of changed one sentence in NAFTA and called it new NAFTA. He hasn't brought the jobs back. In fact, while he was president, jobs were offshored at the same rate as before he was president. The factories I saw in the Midwest that were closed are still closed. So that's all. I don't think you're a bad person if you like Trump. There are people who like Trump that I think there's elements of it that are hateful, but not everyone. But one thing about Status Coup, we're not Republican or Democrat. Most media picks a side because that's what's profitable. You're either team blue or team red. We're team anti-green. We're anti-corruption. We are anti-neoliberalism. We are anti-stupidity, as Steve talks about all the time, with this whole notion of, debts and deficits, which is not a thing. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem in America is not Donald Trump. It's what led to Donald Trump. And that is desperation among the populace, anger among the populace, a just rejection of our elected representatives because of an awakening, Steve, that you're being sold out by your politicians and your representatives.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I'm distracted watching the comments because there's people that if you say anything remotely bad or negative about Trump, they show they're a member of the cult by, I can't handle it. I can't handle it. It's like acid on my skin. You said something bad about Donald Trump. It's like, Jesus Christ, fucking learn how to be an anti-capitalist person. Learn how to see the system for what it is. Learn how to see them not as your God, but see them as purveyors of the system, regardless. It's just amazing to me. I cannot understand someone that falls into hero worship. It was easy to fall into it with Bernie for a minute, but even looking back, you realize how that warped people's brains, because now that Bernie's not leading it, every one of his ideas has basically dropped to the ground. You hear no one talking about any of the stuff he said. This is the danger of hero worship and putting these people on pedestals and then sitting there salivating and licking their boots. If you get into that, man, knock yourself out, but don't expect me to join you.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, we welcome you if you're a Trump supporter, but I think a big problem, not just among Trump supporters, but everybody on this cesspool called the internet, don't go places only to hear your pre-existing opinions fed back to you. That's called a pep rally. If you want, if you're so triggered and you're such a snowflake, not just Trump supporters, anybody, if you're such a snowflake that you hear anything that you mildly disagree with, unsubscribe. This is un-American. Go away. We don't need you. Moving on to something really important. 2 months ago, a American village with about 4,500 people, through no fault of their own, was poisoned. Since then, there has been, from what I could tell, cover-up after cover-up, from the EPA to Norfolk Southern to the Ohio governor. It is 2 months after the Norfolk Southern derailment and uncontrolled burn. No such thing. That was an uncontrolled burn. They detonated 5 trains over a small village. The governor of Ohio has still not declared a state of emergency. If he did declare a state of emergency, it would usher in more resources from the federal government, including FEMA, among other things. You have residents that Status Coup has been talking to every day. As I'm live, I'm getting text messages from residents. Their houses still smell. This is 2 months later. They're still having serious health problems, like their eyes are burning, chemical burns on their skin, dizziness, nausea. You have residents that have chronic coughing, severe sore throat. This is in America. You have residents that when they leave town, they're staying at a hotel because they don't feel safe in their home. If they come back to their house to pick up the mail or whatever it is, they can't stay there for longer than 20 minutes because their symptoms come back. The testing that is being done is highly suspect. They're being told, these residents, your air is testing fine, your water is testing fine, your soil's testing fine. So what exactly is making them all sick? Can you just imagine? There's a lot of people in America that have railroad tracks either in their backyard or near their home. Imagine that a railroad derails. 3 days later, they blow it up and your life is forever permanently damaged. And you're basically being told, hey, everything's testing good. We're just going to clean up everything else. We'll give you some reimbursements and then good luck to you. Let's play this new news, because the most toxic chemical that we know of, I'm not totally convinced that we actually have been told the truth about all the toxins that were on that train, Steve. But vinyl chloride, which causes rare forms of cancer, including liver, was on the trains. We now have residents, their urine is testing positive for vinyl chloride. Let's play that local news package, Colin.
New Waterford is 4.5 miles west of East Palestine, but earlier tonight, that's where a town hall meeting was held focusing on the train derailment.
About 30 people showed up, including 2 women who say they've tested positive for vinyl chloride. First News reporter Desiree Gosselin was also at the meeting. She has our top story tonight at 10.
Shelby Walker tells me the Norfolk Southern tracks are practically in her backyard.
I am approximately 900 feet from the burn site.
She's been staying off and on in a hotel since the derailment because she is afraid for her health. Walker showed me some of her toxicity test results.
It came back as vinyl chloride. It's not in my blood. It's been in my urine tests.
Walker says her entire family has been experiencing symptoms. 11 people lived in her home prior to the derailment, including her grandchildren.
I'm now on an inhaler that I've never had to before. My voice gets raspy on and off. We get headaches.
Linda Murphy tells me she got a call from her doctor's office as she was pulling into the parking lot for the meeting, telling her she had also tested positive for vinyl chloride.
My urine tested positive for vinyl chloride, which was a shock because they say it goes right out of your system.
According to the CDC, it takes the body about a day to metabolize vinyl chloride. Murphy lives almost 3 miles from the derailment and says she had her test done 2 weeks ago.
I evacuated during the release, and I don't work anywhere near it. I only go into town occasionally for meetings. It doesn't make sense. How could the exposure be there when they tell us it's not in the air? We're not exposed to it, and it immediately goes out of your system.
Hazmat officials have maintained the air in East Palestine is safe to breathe since February 7th, the day after the controlled release. In New Waterford, Desiree Gosselin, WKBN 27, First News.
So that woman, Shelby, I actually spoke with today. I'm interviewing her tomorrow, so we'll have an in-depth interview with her tomorrow or Thursday. It is Passover. So I got to go be Jewish for some of tomorrow. But vinyl chloride, the fact that it is in her blood and there's another woman, not her blood, excuse me, her urine. The fact that it is tested in the urine is very, very concerning. Colin, if you have, did I put it there? Put up Andrew Welton's tweet. He's a Purdue professor, an engineer. He's been testing in East Palestine, the soil. He's been testing the water. Shockingly, he's independent. So he's been finding different levels, higher levels of contaminants than the EPA. It's the tweet that says CDC Gov needs to rapidly get a team there. So CDC Gov needs to rapidly get a team in and figure this out ASAP. Talk with each other of the households who have reported vinyl chloride confirmation in urine. The air is safe claims were not supported by testing data and chemical exposure symptoms reports. Vinyl chloride is supposed to leave your system within a day. It's supposed to leave your system within a day. So the fact that it is being found in people's urine is highly, highly concerning. Colin, if you see, it's kind of in small print, but you see down there it says public health statement, vinyl chloride.
I actually don't have that tweet. I didn't see it in the email.
That's okay. Do you see the public health statement, vinyl chloride?
Oh, are you talking about this?
Yeah. No. It's below that. Public health statement, vinyl chloride. Colin just moved, so we'll give him a break. It's on the live doc. There we go. So go down to page 2, where it says what happens to vinyl chloride when it enters the environment. All right, you're still on the wrong thing. I'm just going to read this. Most of the vinyl chloride that enters the environment comes from vinyl chloride manufacturing or processing plants, which release it into the air or into wastewater. EPA limits the amount that industries can release. Vinyl chloride is also a breakdown product of other synthetic chemicals. Vinyl chloride is entered the environment at hazardous waste sites as a result of improper disposal or leakage from storage. If vinyl chloride gas contacts your skin, tiny amounts may pass through the skin and enter your body. Vinyl chloride is more likely to enter your body when you breathe air or drink water containing it. This could occur near certain factories or hazardous waste sites. Hear that? Hazardous waste sites or in the workplace. Most of these substances also travel in your blood. Once they reach your kidneys, they may leave your body. They leave your body in your urine. Most of the vinyl chloride is gone from your body a day after you breathe or swallow it. The liver, however, makes some new substances that do not leave your body as rapidly. So it's supposed to leave your urine in a day, but there can be some things that hang around. And this woman lived 900 feet from where the derailment happened. Vinyl chloride, we could go back to the one that you had up. What cancers are associated with exposure to vinyl chloride? Exposure is associated with an increased risk of rare form of liver cancer, as well as primary liver cancer, brain and lung cancers, lymphoma, and leukemia. That's why this is such a serious health issue across the board in that town, because I hate to say it, but if you inhale or drink anything with vinyl chloride, it's very likely you're gonna get some form of cancer. It's that toxic. And she's understandably afraid. In our conversation, she told me her whole family has had eye infections, headaches, respiratory issues, bad fatigue. She thought she had COVID, but she tested negative for it 3 times. Other people in her family are also having headaches, eye infections. Her husband has had nonstop headaches and coughing. He spends most of his time in the basement. And the Norfolk Southern, interesting, Norfolk Southern's contractor who's been doing testing, they found basically non-detects for any chemicals in her home, even though her urine tested positive. Steve, I know you're not a toxicologist. I know you're not a chemist. You are you do have a doctorate on corruption. It does not make sense to me. And I call bullshit that you could have 5 train cars of petrochemicals explode in a tiny radius with that plume going far beyond East Palestine, and the air is not testing for any contaminants, the water is not testing for contaminants, the soil is not testing for contaminants from the EPA or the Norfolk Southern paid contractor that's testing these people's homes. So that's like the police who shoot you, like doing the DNA after, or like the rapist doing the rape kit. We don't want Norfolk Southern doing the testing, but we have broken that Norfolk Southern in one resident's home in particular, the levels for volatile organic compounds were reading high, but the paperwork she got back, they put down a lower number. And now you have multiple residents that their urine is testing positive. I'm not I'm not hearing this on the news that much. I don't have a federal response to this. We barely have a state response to this. Shouldn't they be testing all of the residents' urine and blood for vinyl chloride? Shouldn't Medicare be paying for this? There's no expanded health care for these people. They have a sham health clinic in town that when residents go to, it just refers them to private insurance doctors. So what if you need a shit ton of blood tests? Well, thus far, they're not covering it. Norfolk Southern's not covering it. The state's not covering it. And the federal government's not covering it. Floor is yours.
As you know, my focus is typically on economics, and going back to deregulation, that was another capitalist move to try to bring up profits. The reason why this even happened is because of deregulation of the railways, number one. Number two, now that it has happened, I for the life of me cannot imagine how we cannot find a way to get past the parliamentarian of this law that keeps the federal government out. There's something there blocking that, and it's got nothing to do with the law, whatever that Stafford law or whatever the thing is. That's the air cover for it. There's something else, because if Biden Obama could go in there and talk to the guy and do a full Bernie Sanders and say, hey, call it a disaster area. We're going to kneecap you like we did Sanders. I mean, you could do anything. There's no reason the federal government couldn't be doing it, because the federal government could absolutely pay for all this. It wouldn't even be a thing. They could give everybody a new house. They could clean up the land. They could do whatever the hell they wanted to do because they create the money. There's absolutely nothing preventing making this right, other than the fact that they don't want to make it right. I don't know why that is. But as far as the testing of the people goes, I mean, I think somebody needs to file like a real legitimate federal claim, like file a court and cause them to take this to court and put it on the federal platform. Make it national, make it something other than allowing Norfolk Southern just to say, we'll do our thing and everybody else turns their back. That's my take on that, man, period. There's absolutely nothing the federal government couldn't do to make this right, other than make the people do the right thing and make it happen.
And little breaking news, Andrew Welton, who is the Purdue University engineer who's been doing independent testing, he has found higher levels of a lot of the chemicals compared to the EPA's testing. I wonder why independent testers who aren't federally paid, who are not on the federal government's payroll, they're finding higher levels of contaminants than the EPA is. But I reached out to him specifically on these residents testing positive for vinyl chloride. I just got it in my email, so we can't put it up on screen. He said, regarding the vinyl chloride detection reports, the CDC and the state of Ohio public health experts should immediately dispatch a team to investigate those as well as others. This is something that should demand prompt attention by health officials. Officials should tell people to seek medical care. It seems they did, and now may have lab results indicating a wider problem. We know government officials in Norfolk Southern didn't test the air thoroughly enough. The chemical exposure symptom reports from residents were one indicator, but also the fact that Pennsylvania Senator Mastriano and his chief of staff got sick when they visited East Palestine. I got sick. This is Andrew, who's been there 4 times doing independent soil, water, and air testing. 7 people from the CDC got sick, and others got sick. Air testing failed to identify the acute health risks. The most important aspect of a disaster response is to protect people from harm. This is a terrible precedent set by local, state, and federal agencies. It's time to rapidly course correct. All I know, Steve, not that this matters to the residents because their children's health is more important, but what I'm hearing right now is this going considerably up. The civil suits, I mean, these residents, rightly so, are going to get a shit ton of money, but it's going to be too late at that point because this is going to drag out for over a decade probably. I'm just going to name a few things. Number one, the state of Ohio, the governor, the state of Ohio EPA, and the federal EPA. It took a month for them to tell children and put up signs not to play by the contaminated creek. We have video of adults nearly passing out at that creek They let children run around near a creek contaminated with petrochemicals. The EPA chief, when asked a month into this, said, yeah, I would tell my children not to play by that creek. And then the next day they put up signs. Just the damage alone from that 30 days, irreparable harm. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but children's immune systems are not as strong as ours, and all their systems are developing. Then you have, the EPA wasn't testing for dioxins for the first month. Dioxins also can cause cancer. It took a groundswell of independent experts, toxicologists, chemistry people, science people to demand that they test for dioxin. They said, okay, we'll test for dioxin. We'll have Norfolk Southern do it. We still haven't gotten the results from Norfolk Southern. We have gotten results. We still, and I don't care what their results are because I don't trust the company that poisoned them to give me accurate data.
Exactly.
You have the state of Indiana. They took 2 soil samples and they found concerning levels of dioxin. I could keep going. So unfortunately, as is the case with Flint, the money is secondary. Sure, you want to be made whole, but you can't be made whole if your kids are permanently damaged, if your health is permanently damaged, if you could never sell your house. It's just, this is bigger than East Palestine. We're covering this. We care about the people. Lewis has been doing a great job as the lead reporter on this. I've been talking to residents every day and doing some stuff in the background. We care about the people there, but this is beyond East Palestine. You think the people of East Palestine 2 months ago thought this could happen to them? If you don't think it could happen to you, whether it's water, air, soil, whether it's an abrupt water switch like Flint or the railroad crashing and exploding. And by the way, without those fumes and that black cloud, the media probably wouldn't have covered it. They only cover shit. They only cover shit. If it bleeds, it leads. If there's visuals. So I know you got to go feed the kids, but I think we have a massive cover up here. I'm not personally convinced. I've been trying to dig in, Steve, and get a whistleblower. I've talked to some people, but it takes a while to get people comfortable to go on the record. I'm not convinced they've been honest about everything that's on that train. I'm not convinced that the 5 cars that blew up were all vinyl chloride. I think there might have been some other things on there that Norfolk Southern did not want federal inspectors when they came down to the site to see it. This is just my speculation at this point. I don't have facts. A hunch that they blew up 4 extra trains to cover up some of the stuff that was on it. But at the end of the day, this is part of the sickness that is the United Corporations of America. Through no fault of your own, if you are poisoned either by the government or corporate America, which is one and the same anyway, there really is no difference between the government and corporate America. Good luck. We might give you some hotel money to stay at a hotel while we clean it up. We might give you a sham clinic that's not even going to treat you, but refer you to your private health care. Hell, Lewis right now is digging in because there's an open question, Steve. The reimbursement money that East Palestine residents are getting, we're not positive if Norfolk Southern did not have them fill out tax forms for them to be taxed on the reimbursement money. We're digging into that because right now it's an open question if residents for the reimbursement they're getting for being poisoned might be charged as taxable income. They have to pay back.
Wow. Not a good deal, brother. Not a good deal. There's no one protecting us at all other than alt media and you being out there. And thank God for Lewis actually being physically there and exposing us, because literally it would be gone, just like that Las Vegas shooting would just vanish the next day as well. I mean, they finally come back and said something about, my God, this will be swept under the rug. As soon as you guys pull out, it'll be gone. It'll be forgotten. It'll be Sandy Hook all over again. Just gone.
And I think I'd like to ask you before you go, for those that are new here, Steve is one of the high pharaohs of modern monetary theory. The federal government, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, like this,
instantly, easy,
could say
no question
to any resident in East Palestine, if you would like to move, we are going to buy your land. We're going to buy your property. We'll pay off your mortgage. We'll give you a little extra so you can move. Because there's a lot of residents that do want to move.
Absolutely.
Residents that want to stay, we're going to give you lifetime health care because you're going to have health care needs. We're going to give you lifetime health care, not just for physical, but your mental health needs because they're all traumatized. For small business owners, let's not forget them. We're going to give you whatever is deemed needed for your loss of revenue, because right now there's not a lot of tourism coming to East Palestine. Vendors, out of town vendors don't even want to come to East Palestine to fix broken dishwashers, laundry, or that kind of stuff. They have the money to do all this. They just spent another 2.6 billion today to Ukraine. Whatever you think about Ukraine and Russia, somebody snapped at me on Twitter. What does sending money to Ukraine have to do with East Palestine? It has a lot to do with it. How do we have this endless money, even if you agree with supporting Ukraine? I think at a certain point, this has become a bit of an empty check. It's a proxy war for humanitarian aid in Ukraine, in Syria, which we fucked up, in Yemen, in Somalia, in Pakistan, and Afghanistan. But sending endless weapons is just going to continue the war. But with that said, how did every other day it's billions more to Ukraine, but we can't get a federal response to help these people? It is scandalous, Steve.
Yeah. I mean, once we can disabuse people of the idea that it's tax money, if we can just get people to stop thinking that way, and if we could just force everyone, literally put a spell on them to stop saying my hard-earned tax dollars are printing money, if we could just get them to stop doing that, okay, we could understand that the government creates money as a public utility that could be used for all these things, and we could take care of it instantly without raising a nickel of taxes, because taxes don't pay for spending, folks. They just don't, not at the federal level. We literally are killing each other by this worthless tendency to call it taxpayer money, this worthless idea that we're just going to go ahead and blow everyone's hard-earned tax dollar and that it's going to create inflation if we spend on this stuff. It's that kind of, I don't understand, and they know I don't understand, so they're going to abuse my ignorance so that we literally end up killing our neighbors. This is a tragedy, a major tragedy. It could be solved so easily. It would be mind-blowing. If you think about your Constitution, Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the power of the purse. It could do this instantly. Write a bill, it's done. No tax money is involved because taxes are deleted upon receipt. But the point here is that the government could do it all instantly, literally instantly, and it's not. And so suffering continues.
Steve, before your kiddies starve, because I know you have to feed them dinner, tell the masses where they could find you, not only on Status Coup every week, but elsewhere.
Yeah. So real quickly, tonight at 8:30, very important thing. We have what we call RP, or Real Progressives Live. That's the banner that I changed to since somebody was fetching over my flag. I decided to take away their itches. But tonight at 8:30,
I actually prefer your Unabomber flag behind you, but that's okay.
I have all kinds of good backgrounds. The next time I'll just pick the one with Donald Trump naked or something for the people out there to worship. But regardless, tonight at 8:30, we have Clara Mattei, who is a great author who wrote the book, Austerity, how the capital order, how austerity was invented by economists. Please come check it out. We are, if you guys have the link, put it in there. Somebody from our team, if you're in the chat, put it in the link in the chat for everybody to see. But Saturday mornings, I produce a podcast called Macro and Cheese, where we talk about macroeconomics, geopolitics, and the geopolitical impact on the global economy as well. And also Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a show called The Rogue Scholar, where I typically will talk through this stuff as well. And I see our guy Humorous out there. I see your comments, brother. I love you very much. Thank you for all the support too. But I'm also here on Tuesdays, and as soon as Colin gives me the green light, we'll be getting Let's Get Ready to Grumble going again here as well. So with that, thank you very much. Check out tonight's this thing with Clara Mattei is must see. If you're not familiar with the term austerity, please, I'm begging you, get familiar with it, because that's where this war, that's where East Palestine's war is. That's where the war is for our healthcare. It's where the war is for student debt. We literally have the answers to this stuff. We just need folks to get with the program so we can build a strong enough movement to make it change. So anyway,
Absolutely.
Jordan, thank you so much for all the time with you. It's good to see you back. Glad to have you back. And I'll look forward to talking with you next week, brother.
All right, man. Thank
Take
you,
care
Stevie.
now.
8:30 tonight. Check it out and go subscribe. Real Progress on YouTube. Let's read some super chats. Humorous, $200. Holy cow. Thank you so much, sir. That is very, very generous. I really, really appreciate it. You're always a big, big help to Status Coup. Steve and I always don't agree with MMT the way he explains it, which is better than me. And I love this damn show, all of them. But I've actually known forever that our monetary system was broken. And Status Coup reminds me of yesteryear when people actually told us the truth in the news. Wasn't that a long time ago when people actually told us the truth in the news? Well, thank you for helping to fund us do it. It's very expensive to do on-the-ground reporting. For those of you who are new, we have sent our reporter, Louis DeAngelis, to East Palestine twice. We're trying to send him there again this month, and each trip costs us $3,000 to $5,000 each trip, between paying a reporter, a camera person, flights, hotels, renting a car, food. So your support really, really makes a big difference. You can become a member at statuscoup.com/join. Join us as a paying member for $5 to $10 a month to help us fund our on-the-ground reporting. I'm also going back to Flint later this month. It is still 9 years later, an ongoing catastrophe in Flint. So I'll be back there for the 9-year anniversary. And I'm also going to be going to Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is being poisoned by toxic gas coming out of a paper mill. So we are on the ground, not just coming to you from a studio. Humorous, another $10. I hope Jordan tells Steve what I said before he leaves the live chat. I want him to know I actually give a shit about him. I support his channel. I support the Real Progressives. I am taking a screenshot of this and I will send it to Steve. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Humorous, another $20. We don't have a government anymore. We haven't for over 80 years. Our so-called government is literally owned by the United Corporations of America. So unless you want to admit the fact, we have no government. I can't say it better than that. I believe we have a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate masquerading as a representative government. So I think we have multi-trillion-dollar corporate body that is pretending to be an elected representative democracy. Tony D, $5. I won't forget the Hollywood assholes who defended Hillary Clinton. Listen, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, there's plenty of things to prosecute about that could have been prosecuted, either one of them for. Do I think the private server was like the worst of them? No. However, if normal citizens would have been prosecuted for it, she should have been prosecuted for it. VA from New York, $10. The Red Berets are a cult, spreading the myth of state-by-state healthcare. Okay, I don't know what you mean, but humorous, $5. Austerity is on a street near you. Soon it'll be knocking at your door, and then you will find out what it's like to be a slave and poor. Humorous, $20. Nobody in this country ever asks how we fund war. No, they do not, and the media doesn't either. But every single person in this country, when someone asks for clean water, food, or a home, every single person says, how the hell are we going to pay for that? Ain't that interesting? Nobody's going to ask how we're going to fund the $2.6 billion we sent to Ukraine today, or the $90 billion we've already sent there, or the money we send to Israel and a gazillion other countries. But they will ask how we're going to fund the nutritional benefits for children, or the food or the SNAP benefits for poor and low income people. Danny, $10. Thank you, Danny. Teresa, $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. And remember, you are who funds our on-the-ground reporting. So if it's within your means, definitely sign up today. StatusCoup.com/join. From John Farina being out there earlier today for 3 hours, live, interviewing Trump supporters, critics, to Lewis in East Palestine, to me in Flint. Every member counts. Every person who signs up for $5 a month, $10 a month makes a difference, because that's how we fund these trips and fund more of it. Right now, we're trying to buy another Live View. Live View is the broadcasting unit that we use. It's the mobile broadcasting unit that we use to go live on the ground. The one we have cost us $25,000 when we got it. We're trying to buy another one so that we could cover more things around the country with more reporters, more camera people. It's expensive. So the more supporters we have, the more we can get it done. So consider signing up, statuscoup.com/join. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Colin, behind the scenes today. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern, We're also digging on more stories on East Palestine and might have some news to break on East Palestine as soon as tomorrow, possibly. So stick around for that. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats, and have a great night.